Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Grief doesn't keep a calendar. Anxiety doesn't clock out after 5. Depression doesn't care if it's your busy season. But support can still fit into your life. With Grow, you can find a therapist who meets you where you are. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions. You can search by insurance, provider specialty, treatment methods, and more to find a therapist who works for you. And if it's not the right fit, switching is easy. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Find therapy on your time. Evenings, weekends, and cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/ACAST today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/ACAST. growtherapy.com/ACAST. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary, not available in all states.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day, yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
You know what's faster than your paycheck? Literally everything. It's time to get your pay up to speed. With Earnin, you can access your pay as you work instead of waiting days and weeks for a paycheck. Get up to $150 a day with a max of $750 between paydays. No interest, no credit checks, and no mandatory fees. Because, hey, it's your money. Download the Earnin app now to get it and join millions of people making any day payday. That's EARNIN. Earnin is not a bank. Access limits are based on your earnings and risk factors available in select states. Expedited transfer is available for a fee. Terms and restrictions apply. Visit earnin.com for full details.
Hello, I'm Sarah and welcome to the Whispering Woods After Dark. I've got one long story to share with you today. It's all about Terrible Tilly, the Lighthouse. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? Nightfall. A bitter wind knifes through the darkness over the Pacific. Far offshore, a beacon perches atop a black basalt sea stack. Once it projected a saving light. Now its lantern is dark. Waves pound Tillamook rock, exploding in plumes of white foam that briefly illuminate the crag. In those flashes, the old lighthouse, Terrible Tilly, appears and disappears. A distant thunder of surf reverberates, and for a moment it sounds like a moan carried across the water. On the mainland, a lone watcher stands on the cliffs of Tillamook Head. Through mist and salt spray they glimpse Tilly's outline. The tower's glass is long gone, shattered by storms decades past. Yet something glints up there. A light? It said no light has shone since 1957. But the watcher cannot shake the feeling of a pale glow flickering where the Fresnel lens once turned. The air is heavy with foreboding. Locals have always felt uneasy about that rock. Some nights they swear they hear faint cries over the wind, or see a phantom ship adrift near the reef. Tonight the wind carries a distant whisper, and the waves seem to roar a warning. The observer's heart quickens. Without warning, the ocean gusts rise to a howl. The light, if it was a light, is snuffed out. Only darkness and the unending crash of the Pacific remain. In the late 1870s, the United States set out to tame Tillamook Rock with a lighthouse, not knowing the cost in blood and toil it would demand. The task was monumental, an isolated basalt outcrop barely an acre in size, pounded by some of the fiercest seas on the Oregon coast. Native Clatsop tribes had long shunned this rock. In their lore, it was a cursed place inhabited by evil spirits, with tunnels under the sea said to lead to the underworld. Fishermen in the 19th century also avoided the rock, calling it bad luck. Some claimed ancient spirits haunted it, and that disturbing the rock would awaken something ominous. Into this atmosphere of superstition and danger stepped the engineers and work crews determined to build a beacon. Congress appropriated $50,000 in 1878 for a first-class lighthouse near the mouth of the Columbian River. At first, planners chose a safer mainland site on Tillamook Head, but frequent fog there would obscure the light, so attention turned to the rock itself. It was an audacious decision. Henry Wheeler's initial survey nearly declared the rock unapproachable, but orders came to persist. A second attempt confirmed the summit had to be blasted flat to hold a lighthouse. Before any construction could begin in earnest, tragedy struck. On September the 18th, 1879, Master Mason John Trewavas, a veteran of Britain's Wolf Rock Lighthouse, attempted to land on Tillamook Rock to survey it. In full view of the crew watching from a boat, a sudden swell slammed the rock. Trewavas lost his footing on the slippery basalt and plunged into the churning sea. A sailor with him, known only as Cherry, dived in to help, but had to be pulled back before he too was lost. Trewavas's body was never recovered, and his horrifying death deepened local fears and outrage. Many had believed the whole project was folly, even cursed, and now those dark premonitions seemed justified. After Trewavas's demise, local labourers flatly refused to return to that rock. The construction foreman, Charles Ballantyne, struggled to recruit workers amid the rock's grim reputation. Ultimately, 8 hardy quarrymen from far outside the region were hired, men who knew nothing of the tragedy or the native legends. To prevent locals from warning or terrifying them, these outsiders were sequestered at a distant lighthouse station until it was time to land on Tillamook Rock. Even without ghost stories, the men soon discovered why the rock was dubbed terrible. On October the 21st, 1879, Ballantyne's team seized a narrow window of calm seas and landed on the rock-slippery ledges. They came with only basic tools, scant provisions and canvas to fashion crude shelters on the barren guano-coated summit. Almost immediately, the Pacific unleashed its fury. Gale-force winds and battering waves assailed the island. A ferocious storm swept away their only supply shed, along with food, fresh water, and their communication line to the shore. For 16 days, the work crew was stranded with dwindling rations while the ocean raged. Onshore, rumours spread that all hands were lost. One newspaper prematurely reported the men had been swept into eternity. Miraculously, when the storm finally broke, rescuers found the crew alive, exhausted and hungry, but cheerfully defiant. They had survived by sheer grit, clinging to that rock as though staking a claim against nature. Construction ground on through incessant fog, rain and crushing surf. Using dynamite, the crew slowly blasted the rounded summit into a level platform. Tons of shattered basalt were cast into the sea. A derrick and cable system, essentially a breeches buoy rig, ferried supplies and men between supply ships and the rock. A nerve-wracking ride where one misstep could mean a plunge into the ocean. The labour was brutal and dangerous. More than 500 days of toil passed before the lighthouse neared completion. In that time, the men endured isolation, terrifying storms, and constant danger. They also made grim discoveries. To work in relative peace, they shot scores of sea lions that had colonised the rock's crags, the carcasses washed away by tides. With the summit cleared of boulders and levelled by mid-1880, masonry could begin. On June the 22nd, 1880, the lighthouse's cornerstone was finally laid. The structure rising was a stout brick and stone dwelling, with an integrated 60-foot tower built to take the ocean's worst punishment. Before the light could be lit, Tillamook Rock demanded another sacrifice. On the foggy night of January the 2nd, 1881, just weeks before the lighthouse's debut, a British sailing barque, the Lupatia, blundered too close to the rocks. The construction crew, huddled in their half-finished lighthouse, heard shouting voices and the muffled boom of breakers, the unmistakable sound of a ship in distress. Captain Wheeler, the project superintendent, rushed to help. He ordered lanterns hoisted atop the tower and a bonfire lit despite the gale, hoping to warn the vessel. For a moment, a large ship loomed out of the fog, perilously close, her portside red light visible. The onlookers thought they heard a desperate command, "Hard a port." Then the apparition disappeared into darkness. Those on the rock convinced themselves the ship must have veered away just in time. Dawn shattered that hope. Wreckage and bodies littered the surf-swept shoreline of Tillamook Head. The Lupatia had struck a reef and sank, killing all 16 crewmen. Only a single survivor made it to shore, the captain's dog, found shivering and alone amid the rocks. On January the 21st, 1881, the lantern of Tillamook Rock Lighthouse officially blazed to life. The first order Fresnel lens, installed 133 feet above sea level, sent a powerful beam slicing across the waves. Duty at Tillamook Rock was a test of endurance that pushed men to their limits. The lighthouse stood 1.5 miles offshore, effectively a prison of wet stone. 4 keepers at a time manned the station, typically rotating in shifts with weeks on the rock and a few days' leave on shore. Even relief trips were often delayed by weather, stranding crews longer than planned. Isolation and incessant storms took a psychological toll on many who served here. The very first head keeper, Albert Roeder, lasted only 4 months before he resigned in despair. He reportedly said that too much of the sad sea did not agree with him. Roeder fled back to the land, vowing it would be a long time before he made himself a hermit again on that rock. Others tried to stick to it and found themselves unravelling. Over the decades, Terrible Tilly cycled through keepers frequently. Dismissal or transfer was common for those who couldn't cope. There were a few men who managed long tenures, stalwart men like William Dahlgren, who served 18 years, and Oswald Alec, who served 2 decades, eventually closing out the light in the 1950s. But such veterans were rare. One infamous incident involved a keeper who went insane and tried to murder a colleague by secretly putting ground glass into his food. Fortunately, that attempt was discovered before it turned fatal, but the culprit had to be taken off the rock in restraints. At least one other keeper had to be removed in a straitjacket after his nerves broke. He departed the lighthouse, gibbering about things unseen and would never return. It didn't help that assignments to Tillamook were sometimes used as punishment postings. The Coast Guard in later years was known to send unruly or underperforming personnel here to straighten them out. James A. Gibbs, a young Coast Guard seaman in World War II, found himself assigned to Terrible Tilly in 1945 as penance for his checkered disciplinary record. Arriving seasick on a lifeboat, Gibbs was greeted with a wry warning from a veteran boatswain. I wouldn't take that duty on a bet. Gibbs soon understood why. Landing on Tillamook Rock was itself a harrowing adventure. One had to leap from a pitching boat into a swinging breeches buoy to be hoisted by crane onto the jagged rock. New arrivals often felt they had been exiled to a sea-going Alcatraz. Gibbs later wrote that his posting there had a lot in common with a prison sentence, confined to a half-acre of rock at the mercy of the elements. Those elements were merciless. Monstrous storms frequently engulfed Tillamook Rock. Winter gales hurled 100-foot waves that would slam into the lighthouse with shocking force. Keepers recorded occasions when boulders were flung up by waves, crashing into the building. During a notorious storm, on October the 21st, 1934, wind gusts over 100 miles per hour smashed the lantern room's heavy glass. Seawater flooded the tower as waves break over the top of the lighthouse. The magnificent Fresnel lens was shattered by flying debris. Cut off from any help, the keepers improvised. One keeper, Henry Jenkins, cobbled together a makeshift radio from the spare parts of the foghorn and telephone, just to get word to shore that they were alive. It took 4 days before anyone could reach them. When rescuers arrived, they found a scene of devastation. The landing platform and derrick were torn away. the lighthouse's interior wrecked and waterlogged. Repairs cost $12,000 and took months to complete. After that storm, the lighthouse service installed small storm panes and a protective mesh around the lantern, an attempt to shield Tilly's eye from the next onslaught. But nothing could truly tame the Pacific. In 1912, another tempest sheared off 100 tons of rock from the seaward face of the island, altering its shape forever. No woman or children ever lived on Tillamook Rock during its operation. It was deemed too dangerous a place for families. Only the hardiest of men were stationed here, and even they were often unsettled by the atmosphere of the lonely lighthouse. In the close quarters of the keeper's dwelling, tempers sometimes frayed. There are tales of fistfights breaking out from stress and boredom. Some keepers withdrew into themselves, scarcely speaking for days. Others took up strange hobbies. One man obsessively painted the same rock wall white over and over, as if trying to ward off darkness. The station logs occasionally hint at the mental strain. Despite that, a sense of duty generally prevailed. The light was kept burning every night without fail. By the 1950s, technology and economics sealed Terrible Tilly's fate. It had become the most expensive lighthouse in America to maintain. Automated buoys and modern radar made its remote light less critical. On September 1st, 1957, Chief Keeper Oswald Alec snuffed out the lamp, and the last generation of keepers departed. Alec left a poignant farewell in the station journal, an ode to the lighthouse that had been his rugged home. Farewell, Tillamook Rock Light Station. You, one of the most notorious and yet fascinating of sea-swept sentinels in the world, long the friend of the tempest-tossed mariner. Through howling gale, thick fog and driving rain, your beacon has been a star of hope and your foghorn a voice of encouragement. For 77 years you have beamed your light across desolate acres of ocean. Keepers have come and gone, men lived and died, but you were faithful to the end. May your sunset years be good years. With that, Terrible Tilly was left to the elements, and to whatever else might linger in her empty rooms. Stories of ghosts and the supernatural have been common around Tillamook Rock since the day its light first pierced the gloom. The local Clatsop people's belief that evil spirits inhabited the rock seemed vindicated once tragedy after tragedy struck the lighthouse. Fishermen in the area claim that the disturbing rock had angered ancient forces. As early as the 1880s, keepers on Tilly exchanged creepy tales to pass the long nights. Some were likely tongue-in-cheek pranks on the greenhorns, yet others came from sincere, shaken witnesses. By the time the lighthouse was a few decades old, it had a reputation not just for danger, but for the uncanny. One persistent legend tells of a ghost ship that appears on stormy nights. The tale is often linked to the Lupatia disaster. Keepers have described peering out into a fog-bound darkness and seeing the spectral form of a sailing ship riding the waves, her sails tattered yet eerily still, even when no wind is blown. The cries of phantom sailors echo across the water, pleading and warning, before the vision vanishes as suddenly as it appeared. In one account, all 4 lighthouse keepers on duty supposedly witnessed this apparition and stood in awed silence at the phantom vessel. In the 1930s, a keeper wrote that he heard disembodied shouts one January night, yelling out commands no one alive was there to give. He was convinced he had heard the ghostly reenactment of the wreck that occurred before the light's first lighting. The legend of the ghost ship persisted well into the 20th century. Inside the lighthouse itself, keepers spoke of strange sounds that pricked at their nerves. In the deep quiet after midnight, with the Pacific calm, some heard footsteps where no person walked. New keepers were often regaled with stories of a resident ghost. James Gibbs' very first night on the Rock included such a scare. His veteran crewmates, perhaps hoping to unsettle him, told him bluntly at dinner that the lighthouse was haunted. They mentioned unexplained footsteps in empty corridors and doors found open on their own. Skeptical but uneasy, Gibbs went to bed in a small bunk room. He left the thick glass porthole ajar for air. Sometime after midnight, he awoke in darkness to a shuffling noise within his room. Heel to toe, the slow steps approached his bunk. Gibbs froze, suddenly convinced an unseen intruder, or ghost, was inches away. Something brushed against his face in the blackness. In terror, he leapt up with a shout, swinging a pillow, expecting to grapple with a ghost or perhaps a knife-wielding madman. Instead, he stumbled into a flapping chaos of wings. Frantically striking the light, he discovered the ghost was a massive seabird, a Canada goose, staggering about the room with a broken wing. But the night wasn't over. As Gibbs stood watch in the small hours, the station's foghorn offline, he became aware of a low, unearthly moan emanating from somewhere deep in the lighthouse structure. It was not the wind. The sound had a forlorn human quality, like a distant wail of pain. Gibbs searched in vain for its source. The other keepers were asleep, and no machinery was running. For hours, the disembodied moaning continued off and on. It was one of the longest nights of my life, he later admitted. That inexplicable moan was never definitively explained. Incidents like this convinced Gibbs, a lifelong lighthouse historian, that terrible Tilly did indeed have something supernatural about it. He would later insist to anyone who asked that Tillamook Rock Lighthouse was haunted. Many other keepers came to agree. Over the decades, numerous haunting reports accumulated. There were accounts of hearing snatches of faint music playing out at sea when no ship was near, of finding the kitchen chairs inexplicably rearranged overnight, and even of a sudden knock on the door when the supply boat was hours away. At least one keeper, pacing the lantern room during a graveyard shift, claimed he felt a presence watching him. Turning, he glimpsed a shadowy figure in oilskins reflected in the glass, standing just behind him. Yet he was alone on the tower. He did not stay in that room a moment longer. Another keeper swore that one stormy evening he was chased up the spiral stairs from the engine room by a malevolent entity. He heard heavy boots clanging on metal steps just below him, gaining on him, and fled in blind panic, emerging breathless among his bewildered comrades. This keeper's fear was so real that he had to be taken off duty, trembling and incoherent. Not all of Tilly's ghosts were considered hostile. There is the tale of the benevolent spirit, often thought to be a ghost of a former head keeper who so loved Tillamook Rock that he couldn't bear to leave even after death. This legend holds, in the early 1900s, a keeper approaching retirement expressed a strange wish. He asked that when he died, his ashes be interred on the rock that had been his life. Supposedly, he even joked that he would keep tending the light from beyond the grave. Decades later, some say, this very keeper's remains did find their way back to terrible Tilly. Numerous keepers reported a friendly unseen presence in the lighthouse. They spoke of feeling someone looking over their shoulders in moments of distress, or of tools that went missing only to turn up neatly laid out where they'd help a task. This gentle ghost earned a reputation as a sort of guardian of the light. Keepers even gave him a nickname, Lonely Ben or the Old Man, and would tip their caps respectfully when descending into the empty service rooms at night. It provided comfort in a place where comfort was in short supply. Residents of nearby Cannon Beach in the early 1900s spoke of strange lights dancing around the rock on certain nights, which they took as omens. For instance, a blue glow around the lighthouse was said to herald an especially deadly storm. Some of the older generation claimed that every time someone died at sea off that coast, the beacon on Tillamook Rock would flicker, as if the spirits passed through on their way beyond. To this day, on cold, windy evenings, people hiking in Ecola State Park sometimes report hearing a distant bell or seeing a faint gleam out on the rock. As one local historian wryly put it, Tillamook Rock was haunted by hardship and death from the start. It's only natural that some of those stories stick around like a fog that never lifts.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here. Wishing you a very happy half-off holiday because right now Mint Mobile is offering you the gift of 50% off unlimited. To be clear, that's half price, not half the service. And Mint is still premium unlimited wireless for a great price. So that means a half day. Yeah? Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.
Grief doesn't keep a calendar. Anxiety doesn't clock out after 5. Depression doesn't care if it's your busy season. But support can still fit into your life. With Grow, you can find a therapist who meets you where you are. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions. You can search by insurance, provider specialty, treatment methods, and more to find a therapist who works for you. And if it's not the right fit, switching is easy. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Find therapy on your time. Evenings, weekends, and cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/ACAST today to get started. That's growtherapy.com/ACAST. growtherapy.com/ACAST. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Such a good story, that one. I loved it. I really did. In fact, now, from 1980, somebody took over the island and they have made it an eternity at sea columbarium. Basically, it's a final resting place for human ashes, which I thought was really, really interesting. And I think there are about 30 individuals who are interred there. But loads of stuff going on. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed, and we will catch you again tomorrow. Take care, everyone.
blood donation is now more inclusive. More people are able to donate blood with the American Red Cross through FDA guidelines that eliminate eligibility questions based on sexual orientation. The Red Cross celebrates this historic change and welcomes those who may be newly eligible to donate blood. There's a place for everyone in the mission of the Red Cross. The Red Cross is committed to achieving an inclusive blood donation process that treats all potential donors with equality and respect while maintaining the safety of the blood supply. Join us and help save lives. To learn more and make your appointment to donate blood, visit redcrossblood.org/LGBTQ. That's redcrossblood.org/LGBTQ.
Hey friends, it's Nikayla from the podcast Side Hustle Pro. I'm always looking for ways to entertain my kids without screens, and the Yoto Mini has been a total lifesaver. My kids started using it right away and haven't stopped since. Hours of stories, music, podcasts, and more at no screens or ads. Now through December 1st, Yoto is having its biggest sale of the year. Check out yotoplay.com.
This episode is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Do you ever think about switching insurance companies to see if you could save some cash? Progressive makes it easy to see if you could save when you bundle your home and auto policies. Try it at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states.
The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.